The boy's laughter cut through the hushed air like a knife, sharp and out of place. The tomb of the unknown soldier stood silent, sacred, its very presence demanding respect. Yet one entitled teenager, his voice rising above the murmuring tourists, leaned on the marble railing and muttered loud enough for those nearby to hear, "What's the point of this anyway? Just a bunch of soldiers standing still. Waste of time." His mother gave a weak chuckle, tugging on his sleeve as if embarrassed but unwilling to actually correct him. That's when the crowd began to shift, because directly in the boy's line of sight was the guard on duty, a single dad, a veteran who had sacrificed more than the kid could ever imagine. This guard wasn't just any soldier. He had spent years serving overseas before coming home to raise his daughter alone after losing his wife to illness. Now he dedicated his days to guarding this sacred place, a promise of honor, respect, and silence for those who could no longer speak for themselves. To him, every step, every click of his heel against the stone walkway wasn't just duty, it was a vow carved into his soul. And though his training demanded absolute composure, there was something about the boy's cruel laughter that pierced deeper than usual. He thought of his daughter, barely a teenager herself, who still cried at night because her mother's chair sat empty at the dinner table. He thought of the folded flag he kept in his bedroom, a reminder that freedom always had a cost. The boy sneered again, his arms crossed. Seriously, why does he just march back and forth like a robot? Doesn't he ever get bored? People nearby exchanged nervous glances, some shifting uncomfortably. A few whispered, urging him to be quiet, but the boy doubled down, emboldened by the silence. That's when the guard made his move. With precision, he halted mid-step, pivoting sharply until his polished shoes aligned perfectly with the boy's position. His voice thundered, trained and commanding, echoing off the marble columns, "Respect. Silence. This is hallowed ground." The crowd froze, stunned. The boy's smirk faltered, though pride held him from lowering his head. His mother flushed, pulling on his arm, whispering urgently for him to apologize, but the boy yanked free. "What's so special about this place? Nobody even knows who's buried here." His words hung in the air, and for a moment it felt like the whole world stopped. The veteran's jaw clenched, but instead of anger, something heavier filled his voice. "You're right," he said, his tone steady yet carrying the weight of countless untold stories. "We don't know their names. We don't know their faces. They gave everything, even their identity, so that kids like you could live free, laugh loud, and never know what it's like to die nameless in a foreign land. You see boredom. I see brothers, fathers, sons, people who gave the very thing you take for granted every single day." The boy blinked, caught off guard by the raw conviction in the man's voice. The crowd leaned in closer, breaths held as if they too were hearing something sacred. The guard continued, his voice softer now, almost breaking. "I stand here not because I'm bored, but because I swore that they would never be forgotten. I swore that no laughter, no ignorance, no selfishness would dishonor their sacrifice. I am a father. I am a soldier. And every step I take here is for the men and women who can no longer take one themselves." Silence. Heavy, absolute silence. The boy's face reddened, and for the first time, his defiance cracked. His eyes flicked to the marble tomb, to the wreaths laid gently against it, to the rows of veterans in the audience whose hats bore insignias he didn't understand but whose eyes burned with a quiet fire. He swallowed hard, and his mother whispered again, this time with tears in her eyes. Slowly, almost reluctantly, the boy muttered, "I'm sorry." The guard's eyes didn't leave him. There was no gloating, no satisfaction, only a deep, tired respect. He gave the faintest nod before pivoting back into formation, resuming his march with flawless precision, as if the interruption had never happened. But for everyone watching, something had shifted. The weight of his words lingered in the air, pressing into their hearts. A few people wiped their eyes. A veteran in a wheelchair saluted with trembling fingers. Parents pulled their children closer, whispering explanations about sacrifice and respect. The boy didn't say another word for the rest of the ceremony. He stood still, shoulders stiff, his hands clutched nervously in front of him. For perhaps the first time in his life, he understood that the world was bigger than himself. He understood that honor wasn't just a word carved into stone, but something alive, something guarded by men and women who carried invisible scars. When the ceremony ended, the crowd dispersed slowly, almost reverently. The boy's mother squeezed the guard's hand as she passed, whispering, "Thank you," though he didn't respond. His eyes remained forward, his duty unbroken. But in that moment, the lesson had already been planted. The entitled boy had come seeking entertainment, but he left carrying something he could never laugh off again: respect. And to those watching at home, let this be a reminder. We live in a world where sacrifice is too often forgotten, where the weight of freedom feels light only because others have carried it for us. But the tomb, the guard, the silence, they speak louder than any words ever could. So if this story touched you, if it made you pause and think, then honor it the way we honor those who served. Like this video, subscribe for more stories that inspire, and share it so others never forget the price of freedom. Because respect isn't taught with lectures, it's felt in moments like this. And today, you just witnessed one.